Super Bowl champions.
E-A-T-L-E-S-E-O!
Surprise! Do not adjust your televisions. It is Saturday morning. We are not drunk yet. We will probably be drunk on sports later on in the day, but we had to pop on this morning to just talk about some fun stuff. It's kind of there's a little bit of some dry space early in the morning, so just going to try to capitalize on it. And again, don't adjust your TVs at all either. It is the Drunk on Ice crew, but we are on the Drunk on Broad channel talking a bunch of fun stuff this morning. So, Jay, good to have you on, brother.
Great to be on, man. I was just telling you offline, I'm not used to being off on a Saturday. For most of you that know, I work retail. So generally, my Saturdays are spent at the job, whether it's in the day or at night. And got a rare Saturday off. So I was asked to do the show, and I'm like, absolutely. I mean, you know I love the podcast. So here I am. And how are you, sir?
Listen, we're as far as, my regular job, school's going good. We're trying to, hold the troops together to get them to spring break at the end of next week. So, say your prayers out for all your teacher friends out there. We got a week to go before that spring break happens. So, things are going, man. I'm trying to. This is the part of the year that I love is school stuff because it's starting to get warmer. We're getting outside a little bit more. We're growing some stuff in science class. We're growing some tomatoes from the lunch trays at school, some peppers, corn stuff, and we have a really cool community garden at school. So we're going to be taking once those plants get big enough, we'll take them outside. We'll plant them outside, and then people in the Norristown community can come to that Sprouts community garden at our school and take a couple pickings of some things. But I think I'm excited for the weather. I really need Mother Nature to get her shit together and give us turn the dial up on the temperature here, Mother Nature. But Jay, we're going to start with a super fun topic. But before we do, Jay, we got a couple. I want to shout out our sponsors real quick because sometimes we forget about them. We added a new sponsor, but our sponsors, starting from left to right, we got Lots of Rain Luxury Watches. They tweeted out some information the other day about they had a watch on sale yesterday for $99. So go check their stuff out. Right in the middle, Team Clicks. That's your sports theme, sunglasses, eyeglasses, eyewear, interchangeable parts, really cool stuff. And then our new one, Shocked Energy. It came across our dial through our friends at Belly Up, but it's a healthier alternative to your traditional energy drinks. So you get that little boost of energy without the boost in the negative things that come with all those energy drinks. So
You mean a healthier alternative to this?
Correct, Jay. Slide that off to the side. We'll put the sleeve on that. But no, really excited to have them on board. I'm working on some other stuff behind the scenes, but Jay, I got my hat on specifically for today because some news dropped the other day that in the 2023 football season, the Eagles are bringing back Kelly Green. And I can't speak. Rich tends to say I really didn't know that uniform, so he doesn't really identify. Jay, you and I grew up on this logo. I am so excited to see whatever version of this Kelly Green uniform comes back, whether it's the exactly what it looked like when they were on the field at the Vet, or it's some new kind of version of this. Talk to me about when you see this old flying bird with the football and the clutches of the talons. What's the first thing that comes to your mind, Jay?
it's funny because I discussed this exact topic on another show. And for me, I automatically go back in my past when I hear the word Kelly Green, not even see the jersey. When I hear the word Kelly Green jersey or Kelly Green, my mind automatically goes back to the days of watching Reggie White and Randall Cunningham, who were two of my absolute favorite athletes of my past, growing up, because that was actually the two athletes that obviously were probably in the best of their prime during when I first started watching football.
Right.
So that's exactly what it kind of represents for me. It represents going, acknowledging my past and kind of, trying to think of the word. I can't think of the word.
It gives you all the feels of when you got
goosebumps. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, here's where I'm at with it. Like, I'm not as, some people are like, like running out. Like, I'm not like excited to that point, because I think that in some senses, as a culture, we seem to be enamored with kind of going back in the past. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I kind of like to remember that past as the past. And I don't think that a new era of guys wearing the jersey is going to change what it means for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least, Jay, it allows you to go back and relive some of those feelings, right? To go back and remember because the vet was very different than the link, right? So it allows you to go back and, at least for me, right, it's not going to replace Reggie White, Jerome Brown, and Randall Cunningham and all the stuff that comes with those players. But it allows me to revisit, Wilbur Montgomery against the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, right? It allows me to go back and look at, the day that Brian Dawkins, blocks a punt, recovers a fumble, gets an interception, scores a touchdown, like all those things that, like, anything, even though, that Kelly Green era kind of ended as soon as Jeffrey Lurie bought the team, it still allows me to go back to the vet, right? And that's where I grew up, right? As a sports fan, I grew up there, going to Phillies games, going to Eagles games, going to see Temple when there was 40 people in a 40,000, in the lower bowl. I don't know. It's nostalgic for me. And it's never, what's up, Adam? It's never going to replace those feelings and say, oh, well, but it allows me to go back and, I'll never be the one to deny that I'm nostalgic. I'm going back to that old school, which is, I don't know. It's the Kelly Green is just a way for me. It doesn't go back to an era of like immense winning, right? They didn't necessarily win anything there. So they're not revisiting a time where they won a championship. But they are going back to probably one of the most identifiable eras of their franchise.
Well, I mean, honestly, Reggie White, in many senses, there's many people that consider him the greatest defensive player of all time. I mean, I know Lawrence Taylor, many will argue was better. Yeah, that's debatable. But to have somebody that was tops at their position and holds so many records in itself is amazing. And realistically, like, the Eagles don't have too many of those type of guys. I mean, right. Reggie White, obviously, wide receiver position, we had Terrell Owens for 1 year.
Yeah.
but we don't have many of that. Like Randall Cunningham during his prime was one of the most exciting players ever to watch. But
oh, absolutely.
Not necessarily one of the top quarterbacks of all time. He's not even mentioned probably in the top 30. But my point is that era had some of the most exciting football that we watched. Granted, we didn't win, like you said, we didn't win a Super Bowl, and that will always be the most exciting, 2017, because we won. Right. But other than 2017, whenever I want to go back to games that I like, truly found myself, wanting to jump on the field and like join these guys, it had to be those, late 80s, early 90s teams. Like, especially
Jay, my wife is checking in from work, Jay.
Okay. Oh, geez.
Her favorite, the fridge. The William Refrigerator Perry was, he was on there. I can't remember the years, but he was on there in those early 90s periods.
Man, she's with us.
Like, I don't know. There's a reason why I have a Randall Cunningham jersey in my closet, right? I love, if not for nothing, Jay, I love the logo. I like this logo a lot better than I like this logo.
Well,
but that's just me.
We actually I believe it was last week, celebrated the anniversary of the vet being torn down, and we had talked about
yes.
Yeah, so we had talked about our most exciting moments at the vet, and mine was definitely a Randall Cunningham moment. It was actually the first game that I ever went to, first NFL game. My grandfather took me, and Randall Cunningham ran for 59-yard touchdown down the sideline in that game. It was just that to me, when something like that happens, it just sticks with you. I mean, and I'll never forget it. Obviously, my grandfather taking me, that was, special too. But like you said, it just represents so many memories and so many good feelings, because that's what you associate good memories with, good feelings, ultimately. So.
Oh, Jay.
Yeah, we're in our feels now. So
there we go. We're in our feels, right? And we're just going to keep it moving, right? We're going to switch to a different topic. This was something that I know you had touched on with your other show, with your Sports and Metal show. Talk to us about the very tragic events of the last couple of weeks with the guy from the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely horrible. It just shows you that life is so short, life is fleeting. And I know that obviously he's not the first musician. There's tons of musicians that are gone too soon. There's tons of entertainers that are gone too soon. There's tons of athletes, and it's just, unfortunately, I'm 45, and I know you're a little bit behind me. You're probably 40. Yeah, we're in our 40s.
Right.
The older that you get, and people will really realize this. The younger generation doesn't realize it, because to them, time kind of is I don't want to say
it feels
forever, but they feel exactly. Once you start getting to the age of 35, 40 years old, you start to realize wow, it's not a coincidence that more and more people just start passing away. And that's because you're getting older. Obviously, like I said, these kind of things happen. When you start to put your mind around that, about how short life is, it just shows you why it's so important to try to enjoy, every day, and try to do good every day, because these guys are here today and gone tomorrow. And that's the same. It's the same for us. I mean, it could be us. Obviously we don't have notoriety. We're not we're not athletes. We're not, professional musicians, but in the scheme of things, they are still human. It's just the only thing different is that they become larger than life figures, because they're, they're public figures, and they're known. Right. But yeah, I mean, Taylor Hawkins, obviously Foo Fighters for me, one of the top bands of this generation. I mean, what they've been able to accomplish. And what's crazy about the Foo Fighters is that Dave Grohl himself was an amazing drummer.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl,
a lot of people don't know that.
Took Taylor Hawkins and made him the drummer. So in that band, like, it was almost like, you just had so many superstar musicians in the band. Obviously, Dave Grohl coming from Nirvana, he eventually, obviously forged his new identity with the Foo Fighters. But Taylor Hawkins, like, is not just a great drummer. He's also a great singer. But most importantly, he's a great person. And you saw that with all the tributes. I mean, listen, there's tributes whenever somebody popular or well-known passes away. But there was like an amazing abundance of tributes to the point where I haven't seen it like that in a long time. And that just shows you how many people he touched, like, personally.
Right. You saw there was something that I saw that came on social media. There was a young girl who had reached out to them that was struggling with some stuff and had connected with him. And I don't remember the exact way but they were able, I think 3 or 4 days before he passed, they were able to connect, meet, play together. So you can see that he was a genuine player that wanted to share what he had and share that gift with as many people as he could. And really just a shame. Like you were saying, the catalog that they put out in the last, decade, very impressive in terms of, their impact on the music and entertainment industry. Just a shame. So Jay, with that, I put together a couple of guys, I don't want to call it, it's not like a top 5 list, right? Like feels kind of creepy to kind of say that, but like just guys that are gone too soon. Who do you like when you think of, so let's do sports and entertainment first. Let's do the entertainment first. You think a guy's going too soon. The first, there were 3 guys that came to mind for me. The first one was Bob Marley, right? Bob Marley was a guy who, passed away at 81, melanoma. But in his very short life, put out an incredible catalog in a genre of music that doesn't really get a whole lot of airplay. The next guy is a guy I know you're very familiar with. Kurt Cobain was a guy who, I was probably a teenager, 14, 15, and they were, Nirvana was just coming on the scene, and they were in every weight room that I was in high school. It was playing, and it was volume 12. And then the last 2 I'm putting together, because it happened. They're in the same genre of music, but it happened in and around the same time, and the 2 events are connected. And it's ironic that you're wearing the sweatshirt that you're wearing. Biggie and Tupac.
Oh man!
I mean, when I think of guys that are gone too soon, guys that built incredible catalogs of music while they were alive. And just really a shame, because had they gone on to live a little bit longer, right, they would have, I can only imagine that they would have enhanced their status as giants in that industry.
I mean, absolutely. Like, obviously, both of those gentlemen, were amazing at what they did. And like I said, it just shows you, that it doesn't matter. Like, when people of status pass too soon, it shows you like that nobody's invincible, because like these are the guys that most people think are invincible. And that's kind of what's ironic about the whole situation, is that, you know, when you realize like, wow, like I said, you can be here today and go on tomorrow. And that's why it's so important just to, like, you know, tell your family members that you love them, make it known, you know, good intentions, just have good intentions in life. Like, unfortunately, like I said, so many people live life with that mentality that you're going to live forever. And, you know, it's these kind of situations where they kind of come up out of nowhere, and you're just left kind of like, you know, really, you know, with a deep pit in your stomach. But yeah, for me, I mean, I actually, I include Kurt Cobain, but I'm going to go one step further. I have a group of 4 guys that actually played in the same genre of music. Now, it's arguable that Stone Temple Pilots isn't technically grunge, but they came up in the grunge era. So for me, it's Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, and Scott Weiland. Like, all guys that were amazing frontmen of bands that were, you know, pretty much iconic during their day.
True.
And they're all gone. Like, the only one left from that era that is still alive is Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. And that's what's crazy to me about that, because, you know, that represented an era, like, and you know me, I'm like a diehard metal guy. And that was kind of like, you know, when alternative music kind of took over, that was like the changing kind of the guard, and, you know, of what styles of music people were listening to at the time. And those were bands that, like I said, for me, were larger than life, and all 4 of those guys are gone. The next person that kind of does it for me, that really, like, really hurt personally, was Eddie Van Halen. Like, Eddie Van Halen to me is, if not the greatest, he's one of the top 3 guitarists of all time. Like, what it was able to do for all kinds of music, just the style that he played, and you know, just a genuine great guy. Like, anytime you know, you ever heard stories of Eddie Van Halen, he was always trying to help people. He was giving people guitars. Like, I've heard so many, you know, stories of just how he was towards, you know, people, and he didn't act better than people. You know what I mean? He always was trying to be, you know, the one that would teach. And yeah, so for me, that really stung, and that was obviously last year. And then, you know, Taylor Hawkins, you know, another guy. Now, if we're gonna go outside of the music realm, Chadwick Boseman, 44 years old. I mean, a guy that was an absolute awesome entertainer. I mean, in quite a few amazing movies. None to me.
I mean, talk about his trajectory. Like, his trajectory coming off Black Panther was like, his star couldn't have shined brighter on that. Like, and then for it to just be like out of nowhere, just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and 44 is young in itself, but to die of colon cancer, it just shows you it's sad, because colon cancer is so, it's easy to catch if you go and get checked. And that's what's sad about it, because he was only 44. And I know that they tell you, like, a lot of times, like now, it's like they don't even tell you till you're 40 to go. But to me, I've always kind of looked at those kind of things as being, I'm not saying preventable to the point where, you know, you're not going to get cancer, because anybody can get cancer, but it's just sad that
Listen, I'll speak from personal experience. We had a very, very, very close family friend who passed away in his early 40s from colon cancer. Like, that one hit really hard, because it happened and it kind of brought back all those things that were prevalent with our family friend. But it's a shame, such a shame. And, you know, especially when you can see that their star was just kind of due north. Like it was just rising. So, Jay,
So I didn't know.
anybody from sports?
Yeah, I mean, there's one huge one that stands out to me, and that's Kobe Bryant. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not just the local connection, but what I wrote an article after, like a day after it happened, and I basically just poured out my heart, like to what I was feeling, and I was devastated. I mean, I'm still devastated. It's years later. I mean, Kobe Bryant, like, what he was able to accomplish not only on the court, but more so in larger ways off the court. What he did, in the community, what he did overseas, what he did, basically just the person that he was. I mean, you can't really quantify. And like I said, we don't want to make this eerie where we're like saying top 5 people, like you said. That's kind of
it feels
but
creepy.
It's
acknowledging
the levity of it. Exactly. The levity of these deaths and what they, kind of, represented is, people that you were just kind of caught off guard. I mean, I'll never forget. I was at work and I got the notification on my phone and I was like, I had to keep looking at it. I'm like, there's no way this is true. No way. Right. And then like later in the day, it was just like, yeah, they confirmed it. I think it was a Sunday. Because I remember I was at work and
I remember being in my kitchen and seeing it and going, no fucking way, man. There's no way.
And it was like early too. I think it was like 9 o'clock.
It was like an early morning. Like
or
we were like just hanging around. And that was like paralyzing. And then the whole story comes out, right? Then it was not just him, it was other people. Yeah. Not just other people, but his daughter and their friend's kid. Like it just like it when you thought it was bad with just him, and then all the other stuff comes out. Man, that just it was and Chip's checking in, right? And I think this, was something that I wanted to speak to, right? Because it's almost as though, as insanely great as he was at basketball, it seemed like the second chapter of his life could have been just as good, with all the stuff that he was doing with the youth sports and his involvement still in the game and his involvement with the whole Mamba mentality. It's a shame that got cut down, because the second chapter of his life, that whole post basketball career, could have been better than his basketball career in terms of the impact, not only on the game, but on life in general.
I mean, absolutely. Like, I mean, it like I said, it's tough to talk about because it still bothers me.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely just like one of those ones where, like, wow, sometimes I don't even want to think about it. And I still tell myself, there's no way that Kobe Bryant is not here. Like, right. Especially because, like, and I'm not super knowledgeable about basketball, but I still, obviously, everyone knows Kobe Bryant. Like, you don't have, right. It's almost like Metallica. Like, even people that don't know metal know Metallica. That's Kobe Bryant. Like, everyone knows Kobe Bryant. Like, and that to me is what is different and takes it to another level. And Chip's right. I mean, elite.
Yeah. And this too
was elite.
Yeah, Chip. I mean, you're right. Like his ability to be able to take the attention on him, but then refocus it. And the work that he was doing with the WNBA and women's sports, and bringing that into light in terms of equity. And it's such a shame, because that whole era of his life all got cut down in that one moment, and it's such a shame. Jay, not the two other guys that for me were kind of from my youth. Jerome Brown, his career getting cut short, very, very early on when he was in the prime and that whole team was in their prime. And then Hank Gathers, a local Philadelphia kid who was at Loyola Marymount, but had a heart condition that didn't, it kind of came on quickly, and just those two guys, just their lives get cut short. It's just a shame.
God, man, like I said, it's so tough to talk about because it just makes you think, like, wow, like, a couple other guys for me that kind of came to mind right away when I was looking at this topic. Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously one of the most iconic NASCAR drivers in history, and I know it's a sport that, a lot of times, I don't want to say it's expected, but it's a very dangerous, and I know it's hard to consider driving a car sports, but that it is, considered a sport. But
that's a topic for another day, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. Very dangerous. So obviously, I don't want to say like that it's not something that can't happen or that they don't even know can happen, because obviously every time they get behind the wheel,
right,
there's a possibility that they could be, in that, but you just still never expect it. And then the other couple guys, one was alive when I was alive, and the other one obviously was way before I was born, but Roberto Clementi probably is maybe one of the most iconic to ever, like, in history that people just talk about, because everyone says Roberto Clementi, like, they speak of him in the same way that Kobe Bryant, like, that we're speaking of, like, as far as what he did for other people. So that's one that comes to mind. And then Walter Payton, like, 45 years old. I mean, I'm 45. Walter Payton, 45, and he had a rare liver disease that nobody knew about. And so, like I said, a list, there's so many people, but
there are so many people. So, listen, Jay, we're gonna move on. Here we go. So tonight we got our local team. Nova is going to match up with Kansas in March Madness. I'm sure, Jay, I don't know if you filled out a bracket, but I think mine was my original bracket lasted about 30 hours before it was complete garbage. March Madness is something that I really enjoy because you get to see all the enthusiasm that comes with the game. It's basically all the things that you don't get out of the NBA, you get out of college basketball. You get to see the hyperfan the hyperfan interaction, especially at the Final Four when you got the student sections behind the baskets. Nova's coming into this game. It kind of sucks because 40 seconds left in the regional final game. They lose Justin Moore, who's one of their let's be honest, they were running 6 deep. He's one of the 6 guys that was playing a lot. He ends up tearing his Achilles in that final minute. So here's where I rest my solace, Jay. I know Jay Wright, and this might be, I don't know how much of a hot take this might be, but he's the best coach in this city. And to me, it's not even a question.
I don't think it's a hot take. I actually agree with you. I think Jay Wright is one of the best college coaches of all time already, and he's still in his prime.
Yeah.
I mean, I know obviously Coach K, a lot of people are, going to be, praising him, and rightfully so. I mean, what the guy's done is amazing. But Jay Wright, I think he's like I said, he's one of the best in my mind, and definitely. I look at all the coaches right now in Philly as far as on the professional teams. I mean, you got Joe Girardi in baseball, who, I believe he's overrated. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I think he's not a top 5 manager in baseball. Probably not even top 10.
Not anymore. I think
NFL,
a lot of what he got in notoriety came from
the Yankees.
Yankees and his ability to be able to just kind of, listen, and we've talked about like you, me, Rich, and like a handful of people online could have probably managed those Yankees teams to World Series.
Yeah, I mean the squad that they had, and then obviously Mariano Rivera, like probably I put him in the not just top closers of all time, top 20 pitchers of all time. Like Mariano Rivera was just an absolute beast.
Right.
So I could, like you said, we could all coach that team. Doc Rivers, I've been saying it for months. I think Doc Rivers is extremely overrated. I think he's really not. He's won 1 title. Like that to me doesn't signify a superstar coach. I mean, he's good, but he's not great. And obviously Nick Sirianni, the book's yet to be written. I mean, he's young, but he's not anywhere near Jay Wright as far as status. And then who am I missing? Oh, the hockey team. That's right. We don't even really talk about that. Mike Yeo is an interim coach, and I think he's done a horrible job. So that's I mean, you nailed that. He's definitely the best.
If there's ever this would be very Jay Wright-ish for them to win it this year, for him to be able to take a team of guys, and you can tell the formula that he's used, right? He uses this formula where he's not getting the 5-star recruits, he's not getting any one and dones. He's constantly getting guys that are replacing the next guy that are just like that guy. Like it started off with like Mike Nardi, right? And then it goes to, Archie Diacono, right? And then it goes to like or DiVincenzo. And then it goes to Archie Diacono. Like you see those guys, you see the formula playing out, and you see the product, I think, of those guys when they play for 3-4 years with him. And they get the expert coaching that you get year after year after year, and what that does for a player. And you see it starting to translate into the NBA, right? You look at the type of player that DiVincenzo is. You look at a guy who, not for nothing, but killed the Sixers the other night, and Sadiq Bey, right? Those guys are starting to translate into productive NBA players.
Absolutely. I think you just nailed it. Like, not only is he a great coach, but he's great at developing players.
I mean, there's a reason why I think he's never left where he is. He's really good at this. So, like a lot of people say, why don't he leave and go to the NBA? Because he doesn't want to deal with all the NBA bullshit. He knows this formula. He knows what he does. The only exception to this might be the fact that, like, I heard there's a kid playing in Camden I think he's the New Jersey player of the year. He's up for like the Gatorade player of the year. Do you remember DeJuan Wagner?
The name sounds
the kid from Camden. He played at Memphis, went and played a little bit had a cup of coffee in the NBA for a couple of years. His son, Wani, is playing in Camden right now and is up for, the Gatorade player of the year. And Villanova is in his, top whatever of choices. And he is talented enough that he could probably be a one and done. But Jay Wright, I think, on the overall has just built an incredible program. And here's the other thing, Jay. You only ever read about Villanova in the sports section. You don't read about them with any kind of academic stuff, any off-the-court issues. You don't read about them anywhere other than the sports page. Reminds me a lot of Tim Duncan. Never read about Tim Duncan anywhere other than in the sports section.
I mean, it's good stuff. Like, I actually kind of agree, but I do think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jay Wright eventually does go to the NBA when he's older, if he to the point where he's looking for another challenge. Because let's face it, a lot of times people, get to a point in their life where they want another challenge or they want it, the next step. I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibility either.
I think it's also not out of the realm of possibilities that they end up just giving him like a lifetime contract. Villanova just says, you're here as long as you want to be.
Like Joe Paterno.
Yeah. So, I mean, seriously, I think they see, because Villanova is a small school. They're not a huge school. They're not a basketball factory, but they are insanely. This will be his third Final Four in 6 years? I think 6, 7 years. And I think in the other years they've been to the years that they're not making it to the Final Four. They're in the Elite Eight. They're always competitive. Always. But they are 5-point underdogs tonight. So I know Bill Self he's a good college coach. I just can't bring myself to root for them. So I'm going Nova tonight. I'm going Nova all the way. I'm going Nova. You know what, Jay? Here's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Nova to take out whoever comes out of the Duke Carolina game, which is a great matchup in and of itself. You're going to revisit the North Carolina taking out Duke on Coach K's last game. What do you think? What are you thinking tonight with Duke and North Carolina?
I think I'm not a Duke fan, but my gut is telling me that Duke's going to win.
Okay. They avenged the loss of getting beat with on Coach K's last home game.
Yeah, I think Coach K has a chip on his shoulder, and a lot of people are coming for him. I see a lot of people on social media that can't stand the guy, and you know what? It kind of reminds me of Tom Brady. Like, a lot of people don't like Tom Brady, but because he wins. And a lot of people say he's arrogant, which he is. Tom Brady is arrogant.
He is.
But Coach K's the same way. Like, a lot of people don't like the guy, but listen, he's not there to be liked. He's there to do a job, and I believe his results speak for themselves. Like, he does a good job at his job. So people can hate people all they want. A lot of times, it's easy. When somebody has success, they're an easy target because it's always, something that you can complain about.
Absolutely. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the fact that like two of our Twitter friends are going to go at each other tonight. I know Scotty's a huge Duke guy. Our guy, T. Will over at the Full Court Press is a huge Carolina guy. So,
I'm sure they'll be going at it.
I'm sure they'll be going at it. I'm sure they'll be tuning in for everything Duke and Carolina tonight. Anything else you want to touch base on, Jay, with that? We can go. We got two more fun topics. All right. So you sent me a text, best Philly athlete in our lifetime. I'm gonna let you go first. I had the privilege of seeing your list, so I picked 3 different guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna preface this by saying most dominant. I don't want to necessarily say best because I'm not talking about overall careers. Okay. What I'm looking at on these lists are, dominant stretches of where an athlete was just like at the top of their game in their sport.
Okay.
At our local level. So
that's good because the guys that I picked fit into that category. So
yeah,
I'm gonna let you go first. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going first.
You go first.
Okay, so for me, my top three. What should I do them one at a time? I don't know how you.
Yeah, let's do three. Let's go 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so for me, my third would be Eric Lindros.
Okay.
You know, growing up, obviously, it was a different era of hockey back then. It was actually fun to watch, and the main reason for that was, the Legion of Doom, and obviously Eric Lindros was kind of the catalyst of that line. Those couple years, from when he was, I guess, aged 19 through 23. I mean, he well, actually, let's say 25.
Okay.
I mean, he was just not just his points, but more so for me, it was the eye test of what he was able to accomplish on the ice at his size. Like, there's not too many guys of that stature that could skate the way that Eric Lindros did. And not only could he score, but he was a playmaker. He made things happen. And obviously, in the 95-96 season, he had 115 points. And that's probably the best season that we've had from a Flyer in forever. I mean, I don't remember, as much as a lot of people give love to Claude Giroux, I believe he's only had 100-point season.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's even come close in any other year. So in that season, Lindros had 47 goals and 68 assists. And
wow.
It wasn't just that, though. He had 163 penalty minutes.
He was scoring and wrecking, folks.
Exactly. And I just, like I said, I know, me being the hockey fan that I am, and you, and obviously we have the hockey show, and we haven't had a lot of excitement this year. Unfortunately, it didn't go nowhere near what we thought it would, or how we thought it would go down. But for me, Eric Lindros, like I said, as far as athletes that I've watched during that 3-4 year stretch, he was extremely dominant, and he definitely makes my list.
All right, number two.
Number two, I'm going Joel Embiid.
All right.
And that story is yet to be written. He could be number one, but what he's done in the last 2 seasons, Joel Embiid alone, he's already climbed my ladder. At least I know a lot of people will argue this, and I'm an AI guy. I love Allen Iverson, but Joel Embiid, what he does, I've never seen a player do what he does at his size. Once again, it's a size thing. Like what Eric Lindros did on the ice, it's like Embiid does that on the court 10 times. Like
plus 10,
it's
right?
Unbelievable. Like what Joel Embiid is doing. Now I know obviously he hasn't won a ring. None of these guys have. That's the thing. Like it's not athletes that won rings, because a lot of times they're not the best, but it's guys that were dominant. And what Joel Embiid has done, not only the last 2 years on the court, but what he's become as a leader. Like, I've never thought that Joel Embiid had it in him to be the type of leader that he's become. And the maturity that I've seen this guy, gain.
Just like the fact that he was doing what he was doing with, not for nothing, but nobody, right? Because he was doing it with a second-year point guard who is at the baby stages of his career, and Tobias Harris, who shows up here and there but never consistently. And the fact that he was able to essentially carry this team for the first 40-plus games of the year with, very minimal, support, shows me everything you need to know about his dominance. All right, Jay, who's at number one?
Yeah, so for me, and this one, like, obviously, in my heart of hearts, I'm a baseball guy.
I know.
I love my favorite Philly of the era was Jimmy Rollins. I loved me some Chase Utley, but neither of those guys were as dominant during their prime as Ryan Howard. Ryan Howard, to me, in a 4-year stretch of what he was able to do at the, obviously Citizens Bank, it's a hitter's park. I get that. A lot of people say, oh, well, he all he did was hit home runs. Well, he did a lot more than hit home runs. Like, he demolished baseballs. Okay.
He was dominant in an era of baseball.
In 2006, because I went to a lot of games that year. I didn't have season tickets, but that was a year where I was able to actually go to probably more games than I went to since then. I mean, I probably was at 25, 30 games that year.
Okay.
And I would say about 23 of them, he hit home runs. Okay. The guy was amazing. And year, at age 26, he had 182 hits, 25 doubles, 58 home runs, 149 RBIs, and he hit 313. Okay. And obviously he was the MVP that year.
Yeah, just wild stuff. And the craziest thing about his career, Jay, is that it was shortened by the fact that Tommy was here.
Well, and we talked about that.
He probably missed, 2 or 3, maybe 4 productive years that he could have added on to his career if Tommy's not here. We
talked about that, actually. I was on a show. I guested on a show last night, and that was what I was we were talking about Bryson Stott and how excited we were and hoping that he is brought up this year. And I all of those guys, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and Chase Utley, were all brought up too late. Like,
yeah, here's your opportunity to learn from your mistakes.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm getting at with baseball. A lot of times, especially in the Phillies' history, they either wait too long on a prospect, and then the prospect ends up not being good, and they don't get the value for them, a la Don Brown. Now they did trade the guy that they got Holiday. I can't think of the pitcher's name. He was a son of a guy that was actually a really good pitcher. Kyle Drabek. I think his Doug Drabek was his father.
Well, listen, also included in that trade, Jade, is Travis d'Arnaud. And Travis d'Arnaud is still a really productive player now for the Braves.
I get that. But that's not my point that I'm making is that the Phillies, they make mistakes either way. They're always extremes. They either wait too long to bring up somebody, or they bring them up too soon, and then they end up not being what they thought they were. There's never a middle ground, and that's why I was saying. But I didn't want to get off track. Ryan Howard, like I said, for what he did in that 4-year stretch when he hit 58 home runs, 47, 48, and 45, and he had no less than 136 RBIs. Like, guys today, you might have 2 players in the whole major leagues that get 120 RBIs. And you're talking about a guy that had over 136 4 years in a row. That's ridiculous. Like, that's the dominance, and that to me is why he makes the top of my list, because of how dominant he was. Yes, it was a short time, but in that short time, I don't think there was anybody better as far as being a power hitter in baseball. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Jay, just to piggyback that, right? So my guy at number 3 is a guy from that same era, guy you touched on, right? Utley. Utley's a guy who, to me, dominated the leadership role on and off the field. He was a guy that you could count on to be in the middle of your lineup and work a count, get a hit, be productive, steal a base, make, look no further than that defensive play that he makes in the World Series, right? The headiness in that spot to be able to fake the throw and then turn around and get the guy going home, that turns that game around. Not to mention his ability to be able to get clutch hits. Just a guy who just, to me, dominated, but dominated consistently. The second guy, Rich, is a guy, and I think he's in the finals of the fired up, most beloved athlete in Philly. But Brian Dawkins, talk about again consistency. A guy who you could constantly rely on to be the stalwart of your defense, and just leadership on and off the court on and off the field. Was able to just be in the middle of that defense and just lead by example, lead by physicality. Again, his probably one of his best plays, that Algie Crumpler hit, in against the Falcons in the playoffs to elevate that team to be able to get to get them on track to win that game. The last guy, Jay, and we talk about Embiid having to carry a bunch of have to carry the blue coats. I mean, Allen Iverson did that for his entire career. He never had the Robin to his Batman. He always carried that team, and he did it in that diminutive stature. Was a guy who was barely 6 feet tall, but played like he was 7 feet, and dominated every guy, dominated every matchup, and a guy who really just fit in with the city, who they never had to worry about whether they were going to get 100% effort from him. And that playoff run in 2002, where they end up facing the Lakers, I mean, just look at the roster of guys that he was playing with. Dikembe Mutombo, Eric Snow, Aaron McKee. Like, he wasn't playing with Shaquille O'Neal. He wasn't. I mean, you put him and Shaquille O'Neal together, that era for Philadelphia sports might have looked a little bit different if you had given him a guy to play with in that era. So, Utley, Dawkins, and Iverson are the guys on my list. I'm sure, if we ask somebody else, they could probably have 3 different guys. But those are always fun things, Jay. And Jay, the last fun topic, we're going to end with something completely non-sports related, or it could be sports related. Who knows? Jay, I'm going to ask you to recommend a show and an album.
Show and an album.
You want me to go first?
Well, no, I could go first.
All right.
So,
what's going on, Joe?
A show that I'm trying to think of one. Are these like obscure or something that everybody already watched?
It could be, Jay. It could be something that you're watching. It could be something that you like watching. Just something. There's been a couple of non-sports things that I'm watching that I just wanted to share.
Well, so to me, I'm a huge history buff.
All right.
So there's actually a JFK documentary that just came out, I believe, last year.
Okay.
And it's basically the sequel to the original JFK movie that was
with Costner?
I'm sorry?
The one with Costner?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Oliver Stone produced that movie.
Right.
And so basically what this is, it's called JFK Revisited, Through the Looking Glass. And it's basically Oliver Stone who made that movie, which in my opinion is one of the best movies of all time. Like, amazing movie. I mean, if you haven't checked that out, I recommend that first, because that's the actual movie. But this is a documentary kind of based on what he kind of found in his research during that movie, and a lot of like declassified files and stuff that's kind of come up since then. So if you haven't checked it out, it's called JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass. It came out at the end of 2021.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic documentary. Very well put together. Oliver Stone is one of my favorite, obviously, movie producers, and does a tremendous job on this.
Yes. All right,
especially
Jay, it's Saturday. You're in the car. Give me an album to listen to.
Okay, so I've already given this out on Sports and Metal, but I'm going to go right back to it. The band is called Ghost. They are a metal band. They're pretty well known, and they have a brand new album out, and it's called Impera. It actually came out March 10th. And if you're a fan of like 80s glam metal and like 80s pop metal and even a little bit of David Bowie,
Okay.
this album is phenomenal. Like it's not the metal that you're used to as far as with Ghost. You know, usually they're like a little bit heavier, but this goes kind of back to the 80s style. And there's actually a track called Spilloise. It's basically, it reminds me of Bon Jovi. Like it's got that sound. So you know the song Runaway by Bon Jovi?
Yeah.
So Spilloise, it sounds like basically a combination of Runaway from Bon Jovi and there's a little bit of it's got, I'm trying to think of the other band that I would say they remind me of. Foreigner. Cold as Ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jay, you're basically saying, go grab the keys to the Camaro, pop the T-tops,
yes,
turn the volume up, and hit the highway.
Absolutely.
All right.
Watcher in the Sky is my favorite track on the album, and honestly, it's like it's got 80s pop all over it. If you like 80s pop, you'll like this album. Like it's
very
not
cool.
What you would think of as a metal album, but it's metal.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Jay, the show that I'm watching right now is in season 4. I'm not by any stretch into cars or race cars or anything, but there's a show on Netflix called Drive to Survive about the Formula One series, and it's like a Hard Knocks-ish behind the scenes interviews with the drivers and the teams, and it's fascinating. And to see the point of view camera angle from inside the car as they're driving these cars 180, 200 miles an hour, and they're all street courses, is just fascinating. So if you've got like a surround sound system anywhere, or you got a TV where you can turn the volume up, you can sit and watch Drive to Survive, and the scenes where they're actually in the Formula One races are insane. There's another show that I'm watching that kind of goes back to one of the topics we were talking about. There's a show on Hulu called Wu-Tang, the American Saga, and it basically takes them all the way back to before they were discovered. Growing up in New York on Staten Island, and their whole journey from being underground to where the season 2 kind of left off with their most recent contract and then being discovered. So those are two they're kind of ones that you can kind of throw on for a little while. Jay, the album that I ran into was because I was listening to some Foo Fighters stuff, and the album that I ran into was an old Black Keys album, El Camino. And that, for me, like, I didn't realize that, like, every one for me kind of hit. Like, I had listened to the whole album without realizing that I didn't. For me, I would describe this album as like a no skip, right? This was one that it's got everything that you want out of a modern day rock band ish. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the Black Keys?
I mean, I love the Black Keys. I think they have a lot of good material. And I'll definitely check that album out. I'm sure I've heard it, but I'll have to go back in my archives.
Go back in the archives.
I have Amazon, so I pay for it.
It's definitely on there. You can definitely find it on there. Jay, any final thoughts before we jump out of here on a Saturday?
No, just like I said, I'm excited to do this show all the time. It's a pleasure to work with you, Don, and just want everybody to know that I'm actually going to be starting a mental health awareness podcast in the near future. It will be on the DSM platform. More news to come on that, but I'm actually really looking forward to it because I
Nice.
think it's a great opportunity for me to be able to, get people involved and help others because it's a topic definitely near and dear to me, near and dear to a lot of us, and there's not much out there in the realm of podcasts, and I think it would be a great opportunity to kind of branch off. Obviously, we talk about sports and other topics, but that's a topic that definitely needs to be touched upon, and looking forward to that. So
most definitely. And Jay, I'm going to piggyback off that, and this was not planned by any stretch, but my final thought was there was a news article that I came across, and I'm going to give a huge shout out to the Dodgers. So they had a guy who played for them in 2018, Andrew Tolles. And 2 years ago, he was arrested after being found sleeping behind an airport in Florida. Long story short, on Thursday, the Dodgers renew his contract. For what reason? So that he has access to health insurance. So huge shout out to the Dodgers for being able to see the value in a person and not just a player. That they're not just robotic and they, when they're done, they kind of toss them aside. So the Dodgers, kudos to you. You're doing great work on the field. You're also doing great work off the field. So with that being said, people get outside, go enjoy your Saturday. Find us on all your, you got all the streaming platforms sitting under Jay on the right-hand side. You got our sponsors, Lots of Rain, Team Clicks, and Shocked Energy, all sitting right under me. All the stuff is in our our Twitter profile. You can find it on that link tree. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.